By the time his mom slid me that note, I already knew I was in trouble. Not the kind of trouble you laugh about later. The kind that changes everything. The kind you can never tell your best friend about. My name is Ryan. I am 23, fresh out of college with a mechanical engineering degree that still feels like a weird joke. For the last 4 years, I lived in a cramped apartment near campus in Ohio, eating instant noodles and pulling all-nighters. My life was classes, coffee, and trying not to fail physics. The one steady thing through all of it was my best friend, Eric. We met freshman year in a physics class we both almost failed. He is loud and quick with a joke. The kind of guy who makes friends with the bartender, the professor, and the janitor in the same night. He is the brother I never had. The guy who showed up at 2 a.m. with pizza when I was drowning in homework and stress. Tonight was supposed to be simple. Our graduation party, a joint celebration for me, Eric, and a couple of our friends. We had rented out the back patio of this small restaurant just outside town. It had wooden beams with fairy lights hanging across them, long tables with white tablecloths, and a Bluetooth speaker blasting early 2000s pop songs. The air smelled like grilled burgers and summer grass. People laughed, clinked glasses, and posed for photos. I stood near the edge of the patio with a soda in my hand, trying to look relaxed. Eric was in a navy blazer with his tie already loose, holding a crowd in the middle of the patio like he was on stage. Everyone was laughing at something he said. Typical Eric. He fit in anywhere. I always felt like background noise. That was when I saw her. Tessa, his mom. She was standing near the open bar alone, a glass of white wine in her hand. She was 42, but no one would guess that by looking at her. She wore a simple black sleeveless dress that hugged her waist, just enough to show she took care of herself. Her blonde hair brushed her shoulders. The string lights above caught the warmth in her brown eyes. I had known her since high school. She used to drop off Christmas cookies at my parents' house. She asked me to feed her cat Whiskers when she was out of town. She taught me how to tie a tie before prom, her fingers moving fast while I stood there awkward and 17. Back then, she was just Mrs. Larson, Eric's mom, safe, untouchable. Tonight, she didn't look untouchable. She looked like a woman, a beautiful, calm, slightly lonely woman, standing alone at a bar, pulled out of a world she used to fit into. Eric had told me his parents got divorced last year. His dad moved across the country. Tessa stayed and tried to build a new life. I heard it, but I never really thought about it. Not like this. Not while watching her sip her wine with that quiet distance in her eyes. I realized I was staring. My soda can was sweating in my hand and my chest felt tight. I tried to look away. This was insane. This was Tessa. She had grounded me and Eric when we were 17 for stealing beers from her fridge. She sent me a birthday card every year with a 20 tucked inside. I had no right to be looking at her like that, but my eyes kept drifting back. The way she held her glass, the curve of her smile when someone walked by and said hello, the way her shoulders relaxed when she exhaled. My stomach twisted, half guilt, half something I did not want to name. Eric clapped a hand on my shoulder, making me jump. "Yo, Ryan, you gonna stand here all night or actually talk to people?" I shoved him lightly, forcing a laugh. Not all of us are born entertainers, man. He dragged me toward a group of friends. I joined the circle, nodded at the right times, laughed when everyone else did, but my mind kept drifting back to the bar. At one point, when I glanced over, Tessa was already looking at me. Our eyes met. It was just a second, maybe even less. She did not smile. She did not wave. She just held my gaze for one beat longer than felt normal. Then she looked away and took another sip of her wine. My heart slammed against my ribs. I told myself it was nothing. A weird moment, the kind you forget by morning. I tried to focus on the party, on the fact that we had finally graduated, that life was supposed to be starting now, not getting complicated. But the night kept pushing me back toward her. Later, when the playlist shifted from upbeat pop to some slow, nostalgic love song, the whole patio felt different. Softer, more intimate. Fairy lights glowed above us. People had moved on to dessert and half-hearted dancing. I was standing by the dessert table pretending to decide between a cupcake and a brownie when I realized I was doing it again. Looking for her. She was still at the bar. Her glass was almost empty. She was listening to one of our old professors talk. Her head tilted slightly, a polite smile on her lips. Her posture was looser than I remembered. Not stiff, not the perfect mom pose. There was something else there, something like tired hope. I could not stand there hiding behind cupcakes forever. So I did the only thing that made sense in my spinning head. I walked to the bar. I told myself I was just going for another soda, that if she spoke to me it would be casual. Normal. That I would feel stupid for overthinking all of this. Tessa looked up before I could chicken out. "Ryan," she said, her voice warm, the corners of her mouth lifting. "Trapped by the dessert table or just hiding?" I laughed, rubbing the back of my neck. "Little of both. You know I'm not great with crowds." "You have survived worse," she teased. "Like the time I caught you and Eric with my beer." I groaned. "You are never going to let that go, are you?" "Not a chance." She took a small sip of wine, her eyes flicking over me. "You look good. You tied that yourself." I glanced down at my navy tie, remembering the 20 minutes I spent in the mirror before the party. "Yeah, you taught me. Remember." Her smile softened. She leaned a little closer against the bar, her fingers tracing the stem of her glass. "I remember," she said quietly. "I remember more than you think." The noise around us faded. The music, the laughter, the clink of glasses, all dropped to a dull hum. It felt like someone had turned a spotlight on just the two of us. "Guess I owe you for more than Thai lessons," I said, trying to keep it light even though my pulse was racing. "Guess you do," she said, eyes holding mine. The silence that followed was not awkward. It was charged. Heavy in a way that made it hard to breathe. I knew I should back away, find Eric, rejoin the party. Anything but stand there letting the ground shift under my feet. I turned slightly, reaching for a bottle of soda on the bar. "I'm just going to grab a drink and get out of your way." Her fingers brushed my elbow. Light. Barely there. But it stopped me cold. "Ryan," she said softly, "you don't have to run off." Something in her voice made my chest tighten. I looked back at her. Her face was half in shadow from the string lights. Her eyes were open, not guarded, not distant, waiting. Before I could answer, a folded white napkin slid across the bar toward my hand. Her fingertips lingered on it for a second. "For later," she said. I frowned, confused, but I took it. I did not open it there. I just felt the small square of paper in my palm like it was burning through my skin. It was only when I stepped away, my heart pounding, that I unfolded it under the edge of the fairy lights. In neat, careful handwriting, it said, "Come find me tonight." My fingers shook around that little square of paper. 4 words. "Come find me tonight." The fairy lights above me blurred for a second. I blinked hard, half sure I was reading it wrong. I flipped the napkin over like maybe there was more. A joke. An explanation. There was nothing. Just her handwriting. Small. Neat. Familiar. I knew that handwriting. I had seen it on birthday cards with a 20 tucked inside. On grocery lists stuck to her fridge. On little notes she used to leave on Eric's door when he was late for school. This was not a mistake. This was not someone messing with me. I looked up. Tessa was still at the bar. Her wine glass was empty now. She wasn't looking at me. She placed the glass down, said something to the bartender, and turned away like nothing had happened. Like she hadn't just tilted my whole world sideways. My heart hammered so hard it felt loud. I shoved the napkin into my pocket, my hand moving fast, like someone might see it, like Eric might suddenly appear and read my face. "Ryan, move in a little, man." Eric's voice snapped me out of it. He tugged me toward the center of the patio where someone was lining all of us up for photos. I barely registered what was happening. I stood between Eric and one of our friends, forcing a smile that felt glued on. The camera flashed. People laughed. Someone yelled for one more shot. All I could feel was the note against my leg, a secret pressed between my skin and my jeans. "Dude, you look like you saw a ghost," Eric said under his breath, nudging me with his elbow. "You good?" "Yeah," I lied. "Just tired." He grinned. Party's not over yet. After this, we're hitting Jake's place. You better not bail. Yeah, I said again, but my mind was nowhere near Jake's. When the group finally broke apart, I scanned the patio without meaning to. Tessa was near the back edge now, talking to one of the professors. She laughed at something he said, but her eyes slid past him and brushed over me for half a second. No smile, no nod, just that same steady look. My heart jumped. The night moved on like nothing was different. People ate cupcakes. Someone raised a toast. Parents hugged their kids like they were sending them off to war. Eric gave a loud, messy speech about brotherhood and the future that made everyone cheer and wipe their eyes. I clapped at the right moments. I laughed when I was supposed to. Inside, my thoughts kept circling those 4 words. Come find me tonight. Where did she mean? Her house? Here? Somewhere else? Was it crazy to think she meant it the way it sounded? By the time the party started to thin out, the sky was a deep blue dome over the patio. The fairy lights looked brighter against the dark. People hugged goodbye, promised to keep in touch, swapped numbers they probably never would use. I watched Tessa say goodbye to a group of parents. She hugged one of the moms, smiled at a professor. Then she picked up her small black purse from a chair. Eric slung an arm around my shoulders. I could smell beer on his breath. Okay, man, he said, pointing toward the parking lot. We're heading to Jake's. Mom's gonna close out the bill here. He leaned closer like he was sharing a secret. Hey, by the way, you could give her a hand if she needs anything. She likes you more than she likes me anyway. He laughed like it was a joke, like he had no idea what his words did to my stomach. Sure, I said, my throat dry. He squeezed my shoulder. Real talk, though. I might be in New York soon. For real this time. So if I bounce and she's on her own, maybe check in on her sometimes. Yeah, I said softly. He gave me one of those quick half hugs and jogged off with our friends, calling out goodbyes. I watched him disappear between rows of cars, my chest tight. When I turned back, Tessa was stacking plates with the restaurant manager. I walked over, trying to look normal. You need help? I asked. She looked up at me, and for a moment the whole night hung between us. The looks. The touch on my elbow, the napkin in my pocket. You don't have to stay, she said. This is your night. I know, I said. I want to. Her eyes held mine for a second. Then she nodded. You can grab those glasses and take them to the bar. We cleaned up side by side. Stacking plates. Carrying glasses. Folding linen napkins. The patio was quiet now, the music low. Just a couple of staff moving around us. No one said anything about the note. When everything was done, she signed the bill and thanked the manager. We walked toward the parking lot together, her heels clicking softly on the stone. Thank you for staying, she said. You always were the quiet, dependable one. I laughed weakly. That makes me sound boring. She looked at me. I don't think you're boring, Ryan. We reached her car. She leaned against the door, her purse hanging from her shoulder. The napkin felt heavy in my pocket. Tessa, I said, my voice low. About the note. Her eyes flicked to my pocket, then back to my face. You read it, she said. Not a question. Yeah. A slow breath left her chest. Then you know I meant it. My heart slammed so hard, I thought she could hear it. Come find you where? I asked. She gave a small smile, almost shy. You know where I live, she said quietly. You have for years. I swallowed. And if I don't? Then you don't, she said. I won't bring it up again. She opened her car door, then paused, looking back at me. I'll be home around 11, she said. Drive safe, Ryan. Then she closed the door and pulled away, her taillights glowing red as she disappeared down the street. I stood there alone in the parking lot, the night humming around me. I could have gone to Jake's, I could have gone home. I could have thrown the napkin away and pretended none of this happened. Instead, 2 hours later, just before 11, I found myself driving down a familiar street lined with tidy houses and trimmed lawns. My hands were tight on the steering wheel. My stomach felt full of rocks. Tessa's house sat at the end of the block. The porch light was on. The living room window glowed warm and soft. I parked across the street and sat there for a full minute, my heart crashing against my ribs. I told myself to turn the car back on, to think about Eric, to think about everything that made this a bad idea. Then I pulled the napkin out again. "Come find me tonight." I stepped out of the car. The air smelled like cut grass and distant rain. Crickets chirped. My shoes sounded too loud on the sidewalk. When I reached her front door, I almost turned around. Before I could, the door opened. Tessa stood there barefoot, her hair down. The black dress was gone, replaced with a loose gray shirt and soft jeans. The light behind her framed her like a picture. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then she stepped aside. "Come in, Ryan," she said softly, "if you're sure you want to." Walking into her house that night felt like stepping out of my own life. I had been in this living room 100 times. Movie nights with Eric, loud sleepovers in high school, Super Bowl Sundays where Tessa yelled at the TV louder than all of us. But now it was quiet. No TV, no music. Just the soft hum of the fridge in the kitchen and the faint smell of vanilla from a candle on the coffee table. Tessa closed the door behind me. The click of the lock echoed in the quiet and made my heart jump. She noticed and gave a small, nervous smile. "Do you want some water?" she asked. "Or coffee?" "Water is fine," I said. My voice did not sound like mine. She nodded and walked into the kitchen. I stood in the entryway, my eyes drifting to the wall of family photos. Eric as a kid in a baseball uniform. Tessa and her ex-husband on a beach, years younger. A picture of me and Eric at 16, arms around each other, sunburned and stupidly happy. My chest tightened. What was I doing here? She came back with a glass of water and handed it to me. Her hands were steady. Mine were not. "Sit," she said gently, nodding toward the couch. I sat on the far cushion. She sat a few feet away. Not close enough to touch. Close enough that I could feel her presence like heat. For a moment, neither of us spoke. "I don't want you to think I do this all the time," she said finally, her eyes on her hands. "Bringing guys over. Leaving notes on napkins. That's not who I am." "I know," I said quickly. "I know you're not like that." She looked up at me, searching my face. "Then what do you think I'm doing, Ryan?" I stared at the glass in my hands. The water trembled. "I think," I said slowly, "you're lonely. And I think I am too. And I think this scares both of us." Her lips curved into a small, sad smile. "You're right," she said. "On all of it." She leaned back against the couch and closed her eyes for a second, like she was gathering herself. When she opened them again, her voice was quieter. "When you were at the bar tonight," she said, "you kept looking at me. You tried to hide it, but I saw." And for the first time in a long time, I didn't want to look away. My chest tightened. "I've been trying not to look," I admitted, "since before tonight. Since the divorce. Since you started showing up alone. Since you changed your hair." "Why?" she asked softly. "Because you're Eric's mom," I said. "Because I'm too young. Because this is insane. Because every reason in the world says I shouldn't feel this way." I looked up at her. "But I do." The words hung between us, heavy and real. Tessa watched me like she was reading every line on my face. Then she shifted closer, just a few inches. It felt like miles. "I spent 20 years being a wife and a mother," she said quietly. "I forgot what it felt like to be a woman. To have someone look at me and see more than responsibility." She swallowed. "Tonight, when you looked at me, I felt alive. And it terrified me." Her eyes shone, but she didn't look away. "If you still see me as just Eric's mom," she said, "then you should walk out that door right now. Pretend this never happened." My grip tightened on the glass. "And if I don't?" I asked. "Then you need to be very sure about what you want," she said. "Because once we step into this, we can't go back to pretending." The room felt smaller. My heart was loud in my ears. I thought about Eric's laugh, his arm around my shoulders at the party, the way he trusted me without question. I also thought about the way Tessa looked at me, like she saw me, not as a kid, not as background noise. I don't know where this goes, I said honestly. I don't know if it's right, but I know I'm here. And I know I want to see you, not as someone's mom, as you. Something in her face softened, like I had taken a weight off her chest. You always were honest, she said with a small, shaky laugh, even when you tried not to be. She stood up. I followed, my legs unsteady. She walked me to the door, her bare feet quiet on the hardwood floor. I'm not going to kiss you tonight, she said, and my heart jumped at the word. I'm not going to rush this. I need to know this isn't just a moment for you. The party's already over, I said. She smiled gently. You know what I mean. I nodded. So this is what I want, she said. I want you to go home. I want you to think. Not about Eric. Not about what people would say. About how you feel when you're with me. I swallowed. And if I still feel it, then you text me, she said. Just say you want to meet me for coffee. That's it, I asked. That's it. She opened the door and paused, looking at me like she was memorizing my face. Good night, Ryan. Good night, Tessa. I stepped outside. The cool night air hit me hard. I walked to my car in a daze, her porch light glowing behind me. I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her sitting on that couch, the way her voice shook when she talked about wanting to feel alive. By morning, my stomach was twisted tight. At 10:12, my hands shaking, I typed the message. Hey, you free for coffee today? I stared at the screen before hitting send. Her reply came less than 30 seconds later. There's a bakery near campus. 11. My heart raced. When I reached the bakery, she was already there, sitting at a small table outside, sunglasses pushed into her hair, coffee in front of her. She wasn't reading the book on the table. She was watching the street. When she saw me, a slow, careful smile spread across her face. You came, she said. Yeah, I said softly. I did. Sitting across from her at that small, round table felt different than the night before. There was sunlight now. People walked past us on the sidewalk. Cars moved. Life went on like nothing had shifted, but everything inside me felt new. I nodded and sat down, my hands wrapped around the warm coffee cup, even though I had not taken a sip yet. She took off her sunglasses and set them beside her cup. Her eyes looked softer in the daylight, less guarded, more real. I wasn't sure you would show, she admitted. After last night, I thought maybe I scared you. You did, I said honestly. Just not enough to stay away. Her lips curved into a small smile. That seems to be a theme with us. We started with simple things. She asked about my job search. I told her about the engineering firms I had applied to and how strange it felt to be done with school. I asked about her writing. She told me about freelance articles and how quiet the house felt now that Eric was mostly gone. But under every word, there was something else. Our knees brushed under the table and neither of us moved. Her hand rested near mine, close enough that I could feel the warmth of her skin. Ryan, she said quietly, leaning forward, I need to be honest with you. Okay, I said, my chest tight. I'm not the easy choice, she said. I'm 42. I have a son your age. I have a whole life behind me. If you want simple, you should walk away now. I shook my head without thinking. I don't want simple. I want real. Her eyes softened at that word. Then hear this too, she said. I'm tired of pretending I'm only someone's mom. I want to feel seen again. Not fixed, not rescued, just seen. I swallowed hard. I see you, I said. As you. She held my gaze for a long moment. Then she reached across the table and let her fingers touch mine. Just lightly. Enough to send a shiver up my arm. This stays between us for now, she said. Not because I'm ashamed. Because this is fragile. Just us, I said. Just us. The weeks that followed felt like stepping into a quiet secret life. On the surface, nothing changed. I sent resumes, I met Eric for wings, and listened to him talk about New York. I nodded and smiled and acted like everything was normal. Underneath it all, there was Tessa. It started small. She would text me about something she needed help with. A loose cabinet door. A box in the attic. A faucet she claimed was stuck. Each time I went over, it felt less like a favor and more like an excuse. Her house became a place outside of time. Soup simmering on the stove. Bread cooling on the counter. Music playing low in the background. We talked while I worked. Sometimes we ended up on the couch, sitting close but not touching, sharing songs and stories. We didn't rush it. We let it grow slow. Some nights our shoulders brushed. Some nights her hand rested on my arm and stayed there. The space between us kept shrinking. The guilt came with it. Eric's photos were still on the walls. His trophies still lined the shelves. Sometimes I would sit there and picture his face if he walked in and saw us. One night, Eric texted me from New York. He had landed. He was excited. He sent photos of tall buildings and crowded streets. He also said something that made my chest tighten. "Check on my mom for me. She's strong, but she hates being alone." I stared at my phone for a long time before replying. "I will," I typed. That night, I went to her house. She opened the door with a tired smile and flour on her hands. The smell of garlic and bread filled the air. We ate dinner at her small table, talking about Eric, about my interviews, about the strange feeling of moving forward while still holding on to the past. "He called me today," she said softly. "He told me you've been checking in on me." I nodded. "He asked me to." She looked at me with something like gratitude and fear mixed together. "I trust you," she said, "and that scares me." I reached across the table and took her hand. "Then let me earn that trust," I said. She squeezed my fingers. We stood after dinner, close but careful. She looked up at me, her hand resting on my chest. "This isn't a game," she said. "If it gets too hard, you have to tell me." "I won't disappear," I said. "I promise." That night, when we finally crossed that last line, it didn't feel wrong. It felt quiet and honest, like stepping into something that had been waiting for us both. Later, we sat on the couch, her head against my shoulder, my arm around her. The TV was on, but neither of us was watching. "I don't know how we tell him," I said. "Not now," she replied. "One day. Together." I looked down at her and realized something had shifted for good. This wasn't just a moment anymore. It was becoming something real. Days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into something steady. Eric settled into New York faster than I expected. He sent pictures of rooftops and late-night food trucks. He complained about rent and bragged about work in the same breath. Sometimes he called his mom late at night. Sometimes he called me. Nothing in his voice ever hinted that he knew. He trusted us. That trust sat heavy in my chest. Tessa and I learned the rhythm of what we were doing. It was not dramatic. It was not reckless. It was quiet and careful. I would come over after interviews or long days of waiting for emails that never came. She would be at the kitchen counter, sleeves rolled up, music low, something warm cooking. We talked about everything and nothing. About her writing deadlines, about my fear of choosing the wrong path, about how strange it was to feel young and old at the same time. Sometimes we just sat together, her head on my shoulder, my hand resting on her knee. The house felt alive in a way it never had before, but the fear never fully left. One evening, after Eric had been gone a few months, we sat on the porch as the sun went down. The street was quiet. Fireflies blinked in the grass. She was wrapped in a light sweater, her feet tucked under her on the chair. "Do you ever think about what happens if he finds out?" I asked. "All the time," she said honestly. "I replay it in my head more than I should." "What do you see?" "I see him hurt," she said. "Confused. Maybe angry. And I see myself trying to explain something that feels impossible to explain." I nodded. "I see myself losing him," I said. "Or losing you." She reached for my hand and held it tight. "We are not doing this to hurt him," she said. "We are doing this because it feels true. That matters too. It felt like a line being drawn, not against Eric, against the idea that we did not deserve happiness because it was complicated. A week later, Eric came back to Ohio for a short visit, just 3 days. He texted me the moment he landed. "Drinks tonight. You in?" I almost said no. I almost stayed at Tessa's. But I knew I could not hide forever. We met at the same bar near campus. He looked the same. A little more confident. A little more tired. Halfway through the night, he leaned back in his chair and grinned. "You know, man," he said, "I'm glad my mom's got you around. She sounds lighter on the phone, happier." My chest tightened. "Yeah," I said carefully. "She's doing good." He nodded. "I like that. She deserves that after everything." The words landed hard. That night, I went straight to her house. She opened the door and saw my face and knew something was wrong. "What happened?" she asked. "He's back," I said. "He talked about you, about me checking in on you." She closed her eyes for a second, then opened them. And he said you sounded happy," I said, "and that you deserve it." Her breath caught. She sat down slowly on the couch. "That makes this harder," she whispered. "Or easier," I said, "depending on how you look at it." She looked up at me. "I don't want to build this on a lie." "Neither do I," I said. "But I don't want to blow his life apart either." We sat there in silence for a long time. Then she said something that surprised me. "What if we don't rush the truth, but we stop hiding from ourselves?" "What does that mean?" I asked. "It means," she said, "that we decide if this is worth the cost. If it is, then one day we tell him. Not in fear, not in shame, as adults who chose each other." My heart pounded. "And if it's not worth it, then we stop now," she said, "before it hurts more." I looked at her, really looked at her. The woman who had been part of my life for years without me understanding why she mattered so much. "I don't want to stop," I said. Her eyes filled, but she smiled. "Neither do I." That night I stayed. Not out of habit. Out of choice. Lying there beside her later, listening to her breathe, I understood something clearly for the first time. This was no longer a secret keeping us alive. It was a decision shaping our future. And whatever came next, it would change all of us. The truth did not come all at once. It arrived slowly, the way most real things do. Eric stayed in New York, building his life piece by piece. He called less often, but when he did, his voice was fuller, busier. He talked about work stress, new friends, a girl he was seeing on and off. Every time he asked about his mom, my chest tightened. "She's good," I would say. "She's really good." And she was. Tessa stopped moving through her days like she was waiting for something to end. She laughed more. She slept better. She wrote with purpose instead of habit. Sometimes I would catch her watching me across the kitchen, not with fear, not with doubt, but with something calm and steady. One night, months after the graduation party, we sat on her porch wrapped in a shared blanket. The air was cool. The street was quiet. Crickets filled the silence. I reached into my wallet and pulled out the folded napkin. The ink had faded a little from being opened and closed so many times, but the words were still clear. "Come find me tonight." She laughed softly when she saw it. "You kept that." "Yeah," I said. "I think I always will." "Do you regret it?" she asked. "Writing it." I shook my head. "Not for a second." She leaned into me, resting her head against my shoulder. "That was the first honest thing I did for myself in a long time," she said. We stayed quiet for a while. Then she spoke again, her voice steady. "I think it's time." "Time for what?" "Time to tell him," she said. "Not everything at once. Not dramatically. Just the truth. That I met someone. That it matters. That it makes me happy." My heart sped up. "And if he asks who, then I say your name," she said, calmly, like it isn't something to be ashamed of. I looked down at her. "And if he walks away, then we grieve that together," she said. "But I won't keep hiding my life anymore." The next week, she called him. I did not listen. I sat in the kitchen, Staring at the floor, my hands locked together. I heard her voice rise and fall through the walls. I heard silence, then more words. When she came back into the room, her eyes were red. "He didn't yell," she said. "He didn't hang up." "That's good," I said carefully. "He needs time," she said. "He said he feels confused. Hurt. But he also said he wants me to be happy." My chest loosened just a little. "He asked if it was you," she added. I swallowed. "And I told him the truth," she said. I said yes. We sat together on the couch in silence. "He said he doesn't understand it yet," she continued, "but he trusts us. And he asked for space." I nodded. That felt fair. Weeks passed. Then, one afternoon, my phone buzzed. "Eric, you around tonight?" his message read. "Yeah," I typed back. "Always." We met at the same bar where we had celebrated graduation. It felt like another lifetime. He looked at me for a long second before speaking. "I don't get it," he said finally. "I probably won't for a while." I nodded. "I don't expect you to. But I know this," he said. "You never lied to me about who you are. And she never lied to me about loving me. So I'm trying to trust that." My throat tightened. "I just need time, man." "Take all of it," I said. He sighed, then pulled me into a quick hug. "Don't mess this up," he muttered. "I won't," I said. "I promise." That night, when I told Tessa what he said, she cried into my chest. Not out of fear, out of release. Months later, life settled into something real. Not perfect, not simple, but honest. We stopped hiding. We stopped whispering. We built something, slowly, carefully, with room for everyone to feel what they needed to feel. Sometimes I still think about that night. The fairy lights, the napkin, the moment everything shifted. At his graduation party, his mom slid me a note with 4 words that changed everything. I found her, and somehow, she found me too.